Today I'm going to share with you quite a personal story. I'm going to be talking about what happened to me 2 weeks ago. I think millions of women are suffering with this, and I have never heard anyone talk about it before. It's almost like this is a secret. But now that I'm Googling it, I'm discovering that it happens to millions of women. And it seems that most of us are dealing with this alone and in silence. I knew menopause was coming. I have hit the big 50, and it was inevitable that things were going to change. But what I was not expecting was for a perimenopause symptom to send me to the ER. I have been as regular as clockwork 28 days for as long as I can remember. However, things gradually started to change, maybe over the last 12 to 18 months. I started noticing that my cycles were getting shorter, which is beyond frustrating. Every 28 days is enough as it is. I don't need any more. However, over the last couple of months, things have changed up again. I was finding that I was getting spotting in between cycles. I also had my first couple of extended cycles. So the first ones were pushing out to maybe 35, 36 days. And then I had one that went out to about 50. I must say that they are the most uncomfortable situations to be in. The bloating, when my body clearly wanted to start my period and it didn't start, was so uncomfortable. I felt like I was 6 months pregnant. I had all the other symptoms, but nothing happened. It was like a false period. Then I flipped again and started going back to 14 to 21 day cycles, which was driving me crazy. My cycles were pretty standard, but maybe a little bit lighter and a little bit shorter. However, over the last couple of months, I have had a couple of excruciating singular days of heavy periods where it felt like it was literally gushing out of me, which was quite a surprise because I pretty much have known my cycle inside and out for 40 years. But what happened to me 2 weeks ago put me in the hospital. I literally thought that I was going to die. And I was so frightened, and I was Googling everywhere, I was looking everywhere, and there was no information. I couldn't find anyone else that was saying this, and that made it even more frightening. So what happened? I had a week of spotting on and off. I thought my period had started, and then it disappeared for about 4 days, and then it popped back. And it was tracking along as per normal until about day 3. Then around midnight, I hadn't been to bed yet because I was getting terrible cramping and not feeling well and felt really, really restless. Then around midnight, I swear I was just gushing. I've actually heard it now being called period flooding, which I have never heard of in my life. 40 years of being a woman, and I have never heard this, ever. Apparently there was an episode of it on Sex and the City, but I never watched that show. So this was my first time ever hearing about it. So basically my period came in so heavy, it was literally flooding. It flooded all of my clothes, my bedding, everything. I cleaned everything up, changed, and was absolutely mortified when I was in the same situation 10 minutes later. I basically took Nurofen and I took some Panadeine Forte that I had in the cupboard because the cramping was absolutely excruciating. I felt like I was in labor again. It was so horrible. It started happening every hour, and I called a 131 health nurse who told me that I really should try to get to the hospital or see a medical professional in the next 4 hours if it continued. Well, it continued all right. Basically, I was going through a tampon and 2 pads every 5 minutes. I would go to the bathroom, and this is TMI, but I would sit on the toilet and I could hear it pouring out of me, like pouring. I literally believed that I was going to bleed to death. It was so frightening. It was so frightening. I was just thinking, this is never going to stop. Like, where is this all coming from? And why have I never heard about this? Why was I not expecting this would happen? Why do I know nothing about this? I don't know how I made it to the hospital because it was a 15-minute drive. I had towels and all sorts of business to make it there in one piece. As soon as I arrived, my blood pressure absolutely plummeted and I vomited, and I was taken straight in to see the doctor. I was put on a drip, obviously to increase my fluids, and also given trinaxamine, I think it's pronounced, which actually helps to reduce the bleeding. By this point, I was also passing giant clots, and that was so frightening. Apparently this medication actually helps to clot the blood and stop the bleeding. I was eventually given morphine for the pain because it was that bad. I spent quite a few hours in hospital undergoing a whole bunch of tests whilst having this medication through a drip. I then had to go to radiology, where I had to undergo an internal ultrasound. Now, if you've never had one of those, they are extremely embarrassing and extremely intrusive. Basically, they scan your ovaries and your endometriosis, I can never pronounce that word, endometriosis, no, I'm gone, tissue, as well as they checked my kidneys and basically that whole internal area. Then I went back and waited for my results. Lying in bed, I was literally almost gone. I was on morphine. I had lost, to me, it felt like a pint of blood. I felt so sick. Eventually, the doctor came back with the results from radiology, and I was basically told, oh, it's nothing. This is fine. This is just part of perimenopause. And I was like, what? That doesn't sound right to me. Like, this can't just keep happening to me every week or every 2 weeks for the next, what perimenopause can take 1 to 4 to 10 years. I was just horrified. Like, I was literally just given some of this medication in a capsule form and sent home with no real explanation as to what had happened, why it happened, how it happened, if it would happen again. And like, what do I do if it does happen again? Am I going to pop down and have an $850 emergency bill once a month? Once a week? Like, I was just shocked. I was just like, surely someone in here knows what is going on. And like, to be told that it is normal is really disheartening and really upsetting, and I'm just thinking, what is in store for me for the next weeks or months or years, and how do I get help? What do I do? So I basically decided to put myself out there and tell my story to other women that may have gone through this, or at least expect that this could happen, and know that whilst it doesn't seem normal to me, it seems that it does happen quite often to other people, but just nobody talks about it, and it doesn't seem like anyone really has any solutions for it. I just feel sometimes as a woman we suffer so often in silence because we're embarrassed, or nobody seems to really know what is going on at the back half of our lives. If you are gaining value from this story and would like to continue sharing this journey with me, then please consider subscribing to my channel. I would love to know what your experiences have been with perimenopause, if you were just starting or if you have been through this, any advice that you might have for other women out there. I have recently just popped out a video about the way I'm feeling some days, just struggling with this time of life. And you can check that out right here. I'll see you over there.